My name is Julie Hogan. I'm the VP of the customer team at Drift. I grew up at Deloitte Consulting, so I grew up in corporate consulting and then spent 7.5 years growing the customer team globally at a company called HubSpot. And very recently joined the Drift team to build out customer success and the customer team. And what I want to start with today is to tell you a little bit of a story and talk through a story of somebody named Alex. So as I start talking about this, tell me if this sounds familiar. So Alex is an SDR, and Alex is somebody who's in the office at 7 in the morning. She's there till 7 o'clock at night, and she is cranking. She's doing every single thing she can to get it right. She's reading Extreme Ownership. She's reading Cardone, perhaps. She's reading all of the sales things she should be reading. She has the rigor. She has the routine. I see people nodding. They're like, yes, we have people like this on my team. And doing all of the things on the activity charts, on the opportunity creation and accept charts, all of the data we've spent time talking about today, she is hitting it out of the park. So when you go to your meetings and you talk about operations and you talk about activity, she's at the top of the charts. However, the results are terrible. And what I mean by this is you get pulled aside as an SDR manager, and a sales manager says, listen, we've got to talk about Alex. I know she's hitting her activity numbers, but the deals aren't great. The customers, the potential customers she's bringing, they're not good meetings. Even worse, if this has happened to you, you have sales reps who pull you aside and say, hey, I have to talk to you. I need to talk to you about Alex. These are crap meetings. These are shit meetings. It's not happening. And you're ripping the hair out of your head because you're like, WTF, look at these results. Look at the things that she's doing. And I bring this up because one of the issues that we run into on the customer success side is something that we see everywhere across all teams that have heavy process and have heavy data-driven cultures, is that the root of the problem, in fact, lies there. We spend so much time within our processes, focusing so much on the data, we stop keeping in touch with our customers and understanding what they're telling us. And I bring this up not to throw stones because I come from the other side of the house, because I come from the customer success side. It's because we're doing the same damn thing. On the customer success side, over the past 10 years, as this function and this industry has developed, we have ourselves been learning more about the data that we can get from customers. And we have lots of meetings about customers who are in the yellow. Is anyone in the room part of a customer success organization? I'm the one and only. All right, do you feel me? Have you been in a meeting talking about yellow customers? Customers who aren't in the green, you're laughing. They're not in the green, they're not in the red, but they're in the yellow. So we also find ourselves wrapped around our own internal business processes, doing the things, following the routine and the rigor and the structure of what we should be doing, when in fact, there's an opportunity to learn a lot more about what our customers are telling us, what the very human beings who use our tools, who use our software, are giving us signals about that we can learn from and do more with. And in customer success, we have an opportunity to lean into that a bit more just by virtue of our jobs. We spend time with customers. However, the SDR functional distance from the customer is a real thing. You have an SDR like Alex, who's grinding, doing all of the things. Let's say they have that high potential prospect. They make their way through so many different people in your organization, sometimes even more than what's here, that they lose that opportunity to learn about what a good customer is. They lose that opportunity to learn about why somebody bought and why they continue to see success. But what if I told you there's a way to continue that crank? There's a way for you to continue cranking in the way you have with a little bit of a different lens. And what we like to call this is the customer-centric crank. And what I want to talk about are some of the themes, 3 themes to be exact, that our top-performing CSMs bring to mind when they're considering how to drive a renewal, how to drive better engagement, that are not much different from some of the things your top-performing SDRs could start adopting tomorrow. So the first one I'll talk about. The decision makers are the ones who hand over the money, but end users at companies are the people who are telling those decision makers to open their wallets. And I'll give you an example of this. I got here right in time from lunch. I flew in from Boston this afternoon, and I sat at a table with a few SDRs and walked into a conversation where the SDRs were talking about tools that they themselves have been buying because their operations managers wouldn't buy it. So they're taking their own money, buying a tool to help them generate more leads. And so as somebody who has a software that services salespeople, bells go off, because if that one SDR is doing that and they see success and they're making money, that spreads like wildfire across your sales floor. And all of a sudden, you have an entire team of SDRs who are excited about a product. Now, the opposite could happen as well. Let's say you make a sale through a decision maker, and your end user is a sales rep. And one sales rep has a poor experience with that. And they throw their hands up and say, this thing sucks. It gives me poor leads. These leads don't convert. They tell the rest of their friends. They tell the rest of their sales floors. And so what we've learned at Drift, because our end users are SDRs, our end users are salespeople, they are the heroes of our deals. We spend a lot of time working to get the buy-in from the decision maker, but finding those end users, understanding why they're interested in your product, the pain that you solve, the things that they're interested in, can create a completely different sales channel that you may not be tapping into. So an action item, there's a whole room filled with people who are managing for the first time, in some cases, new teams of SDRs. Celebrate not just the decision maker engagement and buy-in, but the end user engagement, and bake that into what you measure. The second theme that our most successful CSMs tend to bring to the table and talk a lot about is that interruption-driven engagement will make operations managers happy, but not our customers. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what I mean by this. So when we think about interruption-driven engagement, this is phone calls, this is email, this is the way that none of us today are typically spending our time. Look at the stats for who answers cold calls, who's on average opening emails, and who on average is converting on landing pages. These are some of the marketing metrics that Drift's been looking at as we've innovated on how we're engaging with prospects. It's not much different for those of us trying to connect with people who bought software, trying to get them on that first engagement call, trying to get them implemented. For SDRs, ask yourselves, in the community, in the industry you're selling into, are those decision makers, are those end users picking up the phone, or are they spending time elsewhere? And one of the things that was interesting to us at Drift was that we started learning a bit more about personalization. There's a study done at the University of Texas where they found that just the simplest form of personalization, adding the name of someone to a piece of content, to a video, increases the likelihood that that person will engage with you. And so what ends up happening is through these channels that we hold to be true, so we who are looking at the data and the metrics to make sure emails are being sent, phone calls are being left, touches are happening, is that cutting through the noise of all of the other emails and all of the other phone calls your decision makers and end users are getting. And so one of the things that's worked really well for us, both in sales and in customer success, has been the use of video. Anyone in the audience a Vidyard user or using Vidyard? So this is something we've done quite a bit of to engage with customers and to engage with prospects. The other thing we invested in, this small whiteboard costs $3.99 on Amazon. I suggest you purchase one. It makes a huge difference to open an email and instead of seeing a body of text, seeing something that says your name or your company's name. That quick moment of skimming through your inbox, whether it's on your phone or on your computer, and saying, wow, someone took the time to write my name. That emotional reaction that other person will have with seeing your name will increase the likelihood of that email getting open and engaged with. You'll see the one on the top here. This is our VP of products. We have serious faces. Something went wrong. We were apologizing for something we did. But taking the time to do that and working with your SDR teams to figure out where you can introduce different ways of personalization beyond sending the email, beyond going through the cadences that they're used to. And the idea here is that you're meeting your future customers where they're spending the most time and cutting through the noise. Observing the room today while we had speakers in and out, this is the day before the last day of the month. I expected to see many more people out on phone calls, but you saw this. People on Slack, people on WhatsApp, people on text. This is how we communicate. This is how our prospects communicate, how your future customers communicate. And in a place where you can communicate so much faster, so much more easily through messaging, there's also an expectation that it's personalized. So the call to action, Measure the volume of personalized interactions, A/B test it, play around with it. Try some video, buy the $3.99 whiteboard that you can get on Amazon, and see what that does to the conversion rates for your teams. The last one, and this may seem absurdly obvious, but there's always, always, always enough time to deeply understand how your customer's business works. And I'll go through, just this being a sales conference, a quick role play to talk about this. So imagine I'm a prospect and I come to you and I say, I'm really excited, I have this, or I'm a sales development rep and I come to you and I say, I have this new prospect, I'm really excited about them. If you asked, okay, what do they do? If you were to ask a member of your team, what does that business do? What's a typical answer you would get? I don't know, okay. What if you, Doug, you're like, all right, just quick off the top of your head, what does that business do?
They sell travel software.
Perfect, right. They sell travel software. They sell IT stuff. I get that one a lot. And often what happens, because we are busy, we heard Ashley and Nellie talking about the grind and the crank and how hard this job is. Often we'll nod our heads. We do the same in CS. We say, okay, yep, I get it, that makes sense. Pause and hold people accountable to deeply understand, well, what does that mean? What does travel software mean to this business, and who is their end customer, and how are they going to use the product? And it's not to try to collect more information. It's not to test them. It's to better understand how that SDR can then start to recognize patterns and make comparisons with how other customers can see success with what you offer. And so making your SDRs have that accountability factor in their process, not just saying, they do some sort of IT stuff, I think, they sell software, they're in tech. These are the answers we tend to accept because we're moving really fast and we want them to get on the next call or we want them to talk the next prospect. But I'm too busy always loses. The best CSMs at Drift are the ones who deeply understand why someone purchased Drift, what their business does, and what they're trying to do. It creates that opportunity to be able to expand and to add more value. And so some action items that we've learned that hopefully help SDR teams as well. Test on the business. So does that SDR truly understand? And the hint is, they do IT stuff doesn't cut it. Really hold people accountable to understanding what that business does so they can start to understand the patterns of success and the things that they're hearing. How amazing would it be for an SDR to get on their next phone call and say, I talked to someone of a similar industry a few weeks ago, and I know they turned into a customer, and here's what they're seeing, here's what they're doing. Being able to tell those stories and to have that narrative automatically starts building that personalization muscle into their process. The second, and I think I heard Steve talk about this earlier, shadow a CSM, somebody in customer support, as part of training, not just to learn from other people in the team. People on the customer success and the customer support side of the house learn a tremendous amount from those in sales, but to follow a customer through the life cycle, to see what life looks like on the other side, moving through purchase all the way into onboarding and implementation. Spend some time, make it part of that enablement and engagement process to help them see what success looks like for these customers they're spending so much time bringing into the business. And this brings me back to Alex. So the SDR we talked about at the very beginning, who is grinding, in at 7, out at 7, doing all of these things, who is doing all of the right things, but now with this addition, this idea of the customer-centric crank, so having some end-user focus, personalization in the messaging, maybe playing around with some of the videos, thinking about ways they can start messaging and meeting their prospects and customers where they are, and having that accountability for business understanding, you now have enhanced your own process as SDR leaders because that process now has arms wrapped around your future customers, not just thinking about getting through the prospecting phase. So with that, I appreciate you bringing somebody from the customer side of the house to end things today ahead of the ceremonies. I wrapped up a bit fast, and so I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. And if not, I don't want to keep anyone from the end of the evening, so thank you. Questions? Go for it.
When you look at your organization, how do you view your organization
Sure. Sure. I'll answer that with a really quick story. One of the things we did when we joined, we had somebody who runs patient care and patient experience at Children's Hospital in Boston. We're a Boston-based company, come to talk to us, talk to both customer success and the sales team about what it's like to navigate the experience of patients who come through. And one of the things we learned was that they've instituted something called a warm handoff. So they were getting complaints from patients and from patients' families that they'd have one nurse come in and then another nurse come in, and the patient would be sitting there feeling like the two people didn't translate or transfer information in the best way with the best care. And they've put together something that didn't create a ton of red tape, but created the right context for understanding this is how you hand somebody off, and this is how you do it with a human touch. So for us, that's become a core part of how we work together. So if there is a new customer coming through from somebody early in the cycle into sales, and then in sales over to the CSM, there's not only the history of that that's defined in a certain way, but the one-on-one conversations about these are the things that this customer expects, and let's have a conversation together. And one of the pieces of feedback we got about that was, well, that doesn't scale. How are you going to do that? We're busy. We need to get back on the phone, and we need to crank. CSMs have other work they need to do. It takes 5 minutes. And defining that and being realistic about the amount of time that takes. And it's created, I think, a better just dialogue between sales and CS, and also a much more fluid experience for our customers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Okay, thanks, everybody.